Hi everybody, Psych here. Got some information to share with you. This time I'm going to talk about Dunning Kruger versus the Imposter Syndrome. So I did a little research, wrote down my notes that I'm referring to, and so I'll go over it now. Dunning Kruger effect is when a person wrongly overestimates his or her knowledge or ability in a particular area. Okay, so I'm sure you've all run into uh, people like that. Now, this tends to occur because of a lack of self-awareness that prevents the person from accurately assessing his or her own skills. Um, it's like if I told you, I'm a great distance runner when, I haven't even run a mile in who knows how long. Maybe I have some, maybe I ran a lap and I did pretty good, so I thought I could, overestimate my abilities there. Now, remember the old saying, a little bit of knowledge is dangerous. Okay, so that saying can kind of be applied here. Now, usually, an individual that has uh, no knowledge of a subject, uh, but he thinks he has a lot of knowledge because maybe he reads a book or, he takes a class, he suddenly thinks he's an expert. Now, usually it's not a big deal, other than the fact that maybe you have to listen to this person, go on and on about something that he or she doesn't really know that much about, or you know more about. But every once in a while, there might be a particular scenario where there could actually be a concern. If this person thinks he knows more than he does, if there's a grease fire in the kitchen and he's saying, throw water on it, okay, we got a problem here. Or if he's the first person at a car accident um, site where there's an injured person, there's no first responders there yet, and he decides to take action, at the detriment of the accident victim because he's watched an episode of Emergency 911. There might be some significant consequences to that behavior. I think fortunately that's not going to be the case, but every once in a while something like that could happen. It's interesting because sometimes these individuals, they come off so confidently and so loudly or assertively that it's easy to think that, yeah, they really know what they're talking about. But what you're really looking for is someone who is confident and competent, not somebody who is confident and incompetent or subpar in their skills. Now, okay, so that's Dunning-Kruger in a very quick little nutshell. Now, the opposite of that would be the imposter syndrome. So I'm going to actually read what I took from an APA article that I found. And it says, first described by psychologists Suzanne Imes, PhD, and Pauline Rose Clance, PhD, in the 1970s. Imposter phenomenon occurs among high achievers who are unable to internalize and accept their success. They often attribute accomplishments to luck rather than to ability, and they fear that others will eventually unmask them as a fraud. Now, a lot of graduates, experience this phenomenon, and I can remember decades ago when I was working as a school psychologist intern, doing my internship, putting in my hours. Um, I was worried that people would realize that I didn't know everything in the field of education. Of course, after I retired, I realized that I still didn't know everything in the field of education. Um, the thing was, as I talked to, back then, as I talked to other interns or young school psychologists or, colleagues or students that I was still going to school with, I was not alone. There were a lot of other individuals that kind of felt the same way. You know, what if they find out that I'm not really ready to be here yet, or I shouldn't be here? Um, so it's not uncommon and seems to happen a lot, at least in my experience, with graduate students. Um, Luckily, you know, as I worked in the field and I seemed to do okay, um, that imposter syndrome just tended to uh, fade away. Now, I know it can, in certain cases, it can last for quite a while, but luckily for me, mine just kind of faded away. And I think when I talked to a lot of the individuals that I went to school with, they felt more and more confident as they had more and more successes as they worked. Um, Now, my thought is, I'll just throw this out. Okay, I'm not doing anything that's evidence-based here, but my thought is, as a graduate, you could try to fake it till you make it. That's kind of been going around. You've heard that online and on YouTube, I think, through some presentations. Um, or you could act as if, that's what Alfred Adler talked about, like, you know, decades ago, acting as if, to the point to where you actually feel what you're acting. And I think this would actually work for graduate students, because graduate students have actually put in all the time. You know, they've put in the coursework, they've passed the exams, they've done the essays, they've earned the degree. It doesn't have to be just graduates, I should say. But what about, if you've put in your internship, as a blue collar worker as well? I mean, you've put in the time. You've had somebody supervising you, grading your work. If you're a welder or whatever you're doing. I think the idea here is that you start demonstrating a level of competency, and you start doing it over and over again. I think we can kind of get that feeling, that imposter syndrome, to disappear. Now, this is a different scenario than if we're talking about somebody who's falling under that Dunning Kruger effect, because they have not gone through the training or the education or the schooling or passing the exams, or whatever. They've kind of taken a class here or there, and then they've overestimated their skill level or knowledge level. So that's the way I'm seeing it. Again, nothing evidence-based here, but that's the way I would kind of look at it. I'd be curious to see what you think, if that kind of makes sense. And if you've got some information to share, go ahead and do it. Okay? Thank you.